Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. Hello, everyone again. Next on the agenda, we're going to open the town meeting warrant. It is,
Mr. Chairman, I have to interrupt you again and ask you to, if when you vote, you could open the town meeting warrant for the same date today and then close it on the 9th instead of what's listed there, just to be on the safe side.
we need a vote for that, correct?
You need to vote to open and close on those two dates. The open today, close on the 9th.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
In a second, any further discussion? Hearing none.
Yeah,
roll-
So we're just going to count that as a Scribner's error on closed warrant on the agenda?
Yeah, we could say it's a Scribner's errors. I think we're okay as long as it wasn't voted an error.
Right,
You could name any date you want, Mr. Sullivan, I think.
okay. Just want to make sure when posted agenda is followed as closely as possible.
Sullivan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
John Marcy, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Craig Sigenovich, aye, unanimous. Pulling up that. Mr. Ruda, where would you like to start with this? I'm having difficulty opening documents.
How about if I share my screen?
Good idea.
We skipping over old business. We're going to go right to the budget.
Open town meeting warrant was before old
Old
business.
business is the highway superintendent follow-up discussion of road de-icing equipment.
Right, we're going to go to that. We're not going to go to the budget after that.
I've just got open town meeting warrant. I've got it in between new business and old business. I was just going by the order I had on the agenda.
Let's go to item 4, old business, highway superintendent follow-up discussion of road de-icing. You need me to make you
Murray.
host?
I'm sorry?
Jeff, you want me to make you host?
Yeah, if you can, need to share the screen with,
Okay. Remember to give it back now.
I won't dump us all. Okay, so can everybody see the screen now?
No, I just see you.
Okay. Okay. Okay, have you got that now? Or no? Yeah. Okay, so basically, the board asked to see comparison of, I guess, some cost savings between using the traditional rock salt and what I've given as a cost comparison between rock salt, assuming 20 events, a application with a pre-treatment and then a post-treatment. Traditional rock salt would be about $28,000 per season, assuming that number of events. A combination of a salt brine and rock salt combination. So pre-treatment with the brine, and then a post-treatment with the traditional rock salt. And so basically, comparatively, it's about roughly $9,000 savings, comparing apples for apples like that, and assuming the same efficiency. One of the other things looked at was the treated rock salt. So currently, we're paying on the contract $48.15 per ton for typical rock salt. The treated rock salt is $74.50 per ton is what I was quoted. And I think we could maybe do a little bit better than that on a contract, but with, being that we didn't ask for that when this was put out to bid, this was the comparison that I used. So basically, assuming 83 miles of roadway, like the other 20 events, 2 applications with a pre-treatment with the treated salt, and then a post-treatment, it'd be about $43,000, $43,500, give or take, for the season. And then if you use the combination of the liquid de-icer for a pre-treatment and then a post-treatment with the pre-wetted rock salt, it'd be about $49.80, just under $5,000 for the pre-treatment, the same as with traditional rock salt, and then about $21,746 for a post-treatment with the treated salt, or a total of $26,726 for the season. So the last thing that I looked at was using just I guess I already showed you that. That was just the treated rock salt, which obviously it's considerably more. There'd be a considerable savings between using just that and the liquids. So roughly around $17,000 in savings, and again with the previous equipment cost. I'm sorry. So with the equipment costs of roughly $100,000 depreciated over the 10 years, roughly a $10,000 per year cost, that would, even if we use the traditional rock salt material in the liquid de-icers, it would pretty nearly be a wash as far as the overall cost with purchasing the material and using the updated equipment. And one thing that I wanted to point out is, included in the overall cost would be the 2 sprayer units, as well as the brine manufacturing equipment. So, one thing to take into consideration is we do currently have sand salt spreaders. Those costs haven't been taken into consideration with the traditional rock salt, with either the treated or the untreated material. So there is no equipment cost that would be included. So one of the other things to consider right now, we're using a sand salt mix. Basically, moving forwards, we to stay in step with the surface water management or stormwater management programs that are set out by the EPA, DEP. It's not an acceptable practice anymore. We need to move. We need to move away from that practice. Go ahead, Mr. Marcy. Did you have a question?
Through the chair, Jeff, that pre-wetted salt you're talking about, that's like the green stuff I see down like in Oxford. Is that what they use? Is that what you mean by that?
It is. So basically, Mr. Siganevich had asked to make a comparison with the cost of that, or cost comparison, and see if there may be any savings if we were to move towards using something like that
Okay.
in relation to the liquid de-icers. Basically, again, all you're doing with any type of de-icers, you're trying to lower the freezing point of water. So they add a magnesium sulfate to the as a wetting agent. It's supposed to help it stay in place a little bit better, and it actually helps lower the freezing point somewhat lower than just traditional rock salt.
Jeff,
Yep.
and through the chair, I know it's a moving number too. Wouldn't it also be a savings on the spring cleanup? I know you touched on stormwater management, but it'd be a savings on that also, right? We wouldn't have to send the sweeper out.
Sure. So there are definite advantages as far as cleanup cost. What that number actually is, it's kind of a moving target. So
Right.
certainly there would be somewhat less if we, if we're putting down 1,500 tons of material on the roadways this season, we have to assume that we're going out and then recovering nearly that amount between basin cleaning and street sweeping. And we hope we can get as close to that as possible when we're going out and performing those duties. And we also have to report that for the stormwater management program. And again, it's just it puts us further in jeopardy of not being in compliance with those regulations by using a sand salt mix. It's very, very few communities, if any, that are still using that type of thing. So, and again, basically one of the advantages of using the liquid brine systems or even a rock salt, you're using far less material. And again, you don't have to pick as much material up when in the springtime. So there's, the savings on the both end, and then you're getting a cleaner scrape down when you're going out and performing the plowing operations as well. So there may be further savings as far as how much material you have to use as far as de-icing products post-storm. So,
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes. So the payback here, if it's a $100,000 capital expense, what was the estimated savings per year from the current process?
So again, the currently we're using if we're using a sand salt mix, again, we need to move away from the sand salt mix. If we assumed that we were using just rock salt, again, using the formula that was put out there, and I'm going on the high end of it, approximately 700, $8.45 a lane mile using rock salt, based on what was put out there, 250 to 350 pounds per lane mile. Comes out to about $28,000 rough, give or take, going on the high end at the 845 a lane mile. If we were then to figure out the $3 a lane mile with the brine, it's about $4,980, just under $5,000 to perform 20 applications as a pre-treatment. And then, assuming that after plowing, if there was an icing event, usually you wouldn't use the liquid de-icers for, after a storm. It would be more used for a pre-treatment. So assuming that you use the rock salt at the same application rate, it'd be about $14,000. So the combination of the two would be around $19,000, giving us roughly a $9,000 $9,000 credit. And that would put the payback close to 11 years or a break even. But again, that includes the spray equipment for the liquids. With the rock salt, we still would need to use spreader equipment, so we would have the cost of the spreader equipment for the rock salt. So
Mercy.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, Jeff, this just in from a resident. I just got a text. Some good questions. I just want to pass them along. Talking about the road surfaces, would this cause any additional deterioration of the road surface or at a different rate than using traditional materials, and as well as causing rust on people's vehicles?
No, so actually, and that's a good question. Actually, in theory, like I said, if you actually look at this, when you're creating the brine, you're actually creating a solution that's about 23.4 or 23.7% salt. If you look at that, the amount that's required, you've already put the salt into the form that it wants to be in to most effectively de-ice the roadway surface. So you put that down as a pre-treatment. It can be done up to 8 to 10 hours prior to a storm. So you're basically using about a quarter of, 25% of what you would use in rock salt. And again, it may even exceed that, because I think, in the last presentation I showed you that, you get either de-ice or bounce, they call it, or even in dry conditions, if you're putting down rock salt on a dried roadway for pre-treatment, as little as 4 or 5 passes with vehicles, you can lose about 80% of what you're trying to use on the road surface that's getting blown off to the edge of the road between bouncing or vehicle passes. So you're actually using much less material. And again, in theory, it's more environmentally friendly. It's actually friendlier as far as how much material you're putting down there is getting on vehicles or readily transferring to vehicles. So and also being more effective.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay.
Hammond,
Anything else?
Johnson.
this 11-year payback scares me a little. Is there any significant maintenance or overhauls that would be required on this equipment in the first 11 years?
The formula that I used assumes a full depreciation over a 10-year period. Certainly I think you could expect in excess of that. And again, you're comparing something. It's not really an apples to apples comparison. We're comparing something that's somewhat more effective than what's being done right now, puts us closer into compliance with what the regulations are. And, there's some other benefits to this that aren't actually being equated into that figure, because again, cleanup in the springtime with not using sand salt mix, we're doing far less sweeping, assumedly far less basin cleaning and that type of thing.
Yeah, I'd agree that safety of the residents is always a top priority. And second, meeting our regulatory requirements is a have to, not a want to.
Yes.
Something to think about.
Mr. Chairman, one more.
That's Mr. Mercy.
So Jeff, would we try to pilot this a little bit before we actually went to all 83 miles of road? Would we sort of see how it works on a section, or sort of see how it will kind of roll out the rest of the program? Or is this that standard that we'd feel comfortable just going to the whole thing?
Certainly, I think if we'd want to pilot it. It would also, I think would be beneficial to use for, currently we pre-treat with rock salt at the town hall, police station, in the fire station. We don't use any sand there so that it's not tracked into the buildings, but certainly it'd be something that would be useful there. Can be used on walkways or stairways. And again, in theory, you're using about 25% of the material that you'd ordinarily be using. So as far as corrosiveness or any type of damage or residual effects from the material, it would tend to be somewhat less.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Sullivan.
if Jeff can, could he just touch on, last time we spoke, he talked about the time frame it would take for the 2 sprays, if they conceivably at some point were doing the whole town. And then while we got George on here, maybe he could help us with some information, because I seem to recall in the past, when we do the road sweepings, we use that towards like road-based construction, maybe like backfilling some pipes maybe. And I don't know if the water department used some of that, but I seem to recall too that didn't we, that's how we did the grade on Pine Street, right? They used the swept, and I'm not saying to keep the sand, obviously, but just, was there other uses that we, maybe if George has been around longer than all of us, is that something that the town recycles that material, George, when possible?
Yes. Yeah, we do. We still use it for bedding material. It's good for that purpose. What you're talking about on Pine Street, a lot of that was recirculated gravel that we actually had to go and pick through it to take some of the big boulders and bigger rocks out and reuse that for material on that main project. But yeah, we definitely still use that even for some fill for certain projects.
Okay. What about grit and traction on the road? I know, believe me, I see the difference when I'm working in the next town over, and then I come home and walk the neighborhood. There's obviously higher concentration left behind on the road, before it gets picked up. But I definitely want to see, as I think Mr. Massey hit the nail on the head, pilot it in maybe part of the town, ramp it up. Just some thoughts and questions.
Yeah, that's a definitely a consideration to pilot the main roads, and maybe start on a somewhat smaller basis. Again, if you as far as traction or safety concerns, if you're the theory is if you're pre-treating, you're not allowing the accumulation of the snow or ice to begin with. You're getting a cleaner scrape when you're actually go out and performing the plowing operations. So you're being more effective with that. And then again, this isn't a single solution. There would still be a need for use of rock salt, and potentially in extreme conditions. On a limited basis, there may be some need for some sand salt mix to be used as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Nothing.
Okay.
So where do we go next, Mr. Chair? If we're going to
Yes.
we're going to push this ahead, how do we think about securing funding for at least one sprayer at first, I guess would be the plan, or we go right for?
Well, it looks like a sprayer is about 17,000. So the difference between, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but it looks like the difference between having 2 operational sprayers and 1 operational sprayer is about 85,000 to 101,000. Am I right?
Correct. Correct. And again, the theory behind that would be if you were to send 2 trucks out to do pre-treatment, the nice part about having the liquids or being able to do pre-treatment with an impending storm, you would gain some further savings instead of getting a call at midnight when we're getting some icing conditions and going out and being reactive and spreading sand salt mix on the roadways. We're going out during the day knowing that there's a storm coming overnight, pre-treating the roadways, potentially holding the need to go out and do further treatment prior to plowing. Maybe pushing the plowing operations off to out of the area where we'd be paying overtime expenses and mitigating some of the costs like that, and would give us a little bit more leverage and control as far as that's concerned. So
But
again,
Jeff, wouldn't that increase labor costs if we're pre-treating?
no, so if we're going out with pre-treating, that's the whole idea. You're trying to prevent the going out with the liquids and pre-treating prior to the event so that you don't get the accumulation of ice. You're increasing the traction and you're making it so that when you go out and plow, you're getting a clean scrape down and making the roadways safer. And because this can be done 8 to 10 hours prior to the storm, we're going out and doing that during the day or during the employees' regular shift hours instead of being reactive and coming in potentially. There's a lot of times where they're called in after hours. So the assumption would be that two vehicles with sprayers would be able to go out and roughly in a 4-hour shift cover the majority of the roadways with pre-treatment.
Any other questions from anyone?
Mr. Chairman, what is the board thinking in terms of measuring the success of just getting a little bit of equipment at one time? What's their measurement of success?
Personally, my measurement would be better quality roads where you really can't see a town boundary by the quality of the road. That is something I'd consider a success.
I would agree, and I think that's why we're switching to this equipment, because the surrounding towns that are using it have a much higher quality final plow than the way we're doing it.
And
So-
Oxford uses this, Mr. Ruda?
Yes,
And they also use the green salt, correct?
yes, they do use the green salt, and I think that's the green salt is more expensive because it freezes at a much lower temperature than the brine. But I also believe that the brine is used, pretty regularly in, states like Minnesota with no issues whatsoever.
Call me old fashioned, but I'm just a little hesitant to go completely away from sand.
I don't think we're suggesting that, are we, Jeff?
No, again, I think we would have to retain some amount of sand salt mix on hand. Very, very limited situations that you'd be looking to use a sand salt mix. Most often it would be, again, being diligent with pre-treatment and staying ahead of a storm, and then treating appropriately with rock salt after the storm, and during icing conditions, and early enough in the day that it's being effective for achieving the desired result.
So I agree with Mr. Siganevich. I would hate to publicly hang my hat on something that's going to cost money and maybe not work. But On the other hand, I would hate to go out and get not enough equipment that can't be returned and then try to get more of it the following year. I have a little bit of faith that the equipment is time tested and used on a very widespread basis. And it doesn't require Dudley to test it it depends on what your measurement would be. It's not like we're inventing the equipment. It's out there and it works well. And I think it's a factor of the complaints that we generally get are the surrounding towns look way better than Dudley, and it's because they're using this equipment. So that's where I'm coming from. I would hate to have the board have to go back out and say, we need to get another 100 grand worth of equipment. We tested it, it works. So we're going to try to, we're going to bring an article forward to get more equipment. So that's
I personally don't think it makes sense to spend $83,000 for half a system when you can get a whole one for a little over 100. Do you follow me?
Right. No,
Does that
I do.
make sense, everyone?
That's where I'm getting at.
I don't think that math works out like that. I think it's, you get the second sprayer and the second something for the $20,000, but the basic equipment and the minimum requirements are probably a bulk of the cost. Is that right?
Correct. So, and again, I think the rationale would be to be able to be fully effective. I think it would be wise to have the 2 sprayer units. So for the $17,000 savings and be confined to having just 1 sprayer unit and trying to be effective with that, I think we'd be kind of selling ourselves short by doing that. The state more and more is using the liquids. I think you'll see if you go out on any of the state or interstate highways, you'll see that they're pre-treating with a liquid de-icer. Again, after the post-storm or in icing conditions afterwards, they're still using a wetted salt material to be effective with snow and ice accumulations after a storm, but the pre-treatment would be more towards the liquid pre-treatments. Anything else?
Well, Mr. Chair, we asked the superintendent to put it together and work with the administrator, and his recommendation is going to be try to get all the equipment up front. I think that's what we empower these gentlemen to do. So I think we should attempt to follow their lead and figure out how we're going to fund it.
I agree, Mr. Sullivan.
Agreed.
Any other?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Mr. Johnson, any other thoughts?
No, this would, I take it this would go to town meeting for approval.
That's, yeah, I think the voters will have the last say in the end on this initiative.
Why would excuse me, Mr. Chair, what would the voters, over the funding, you mean?
Over the funding.
Not over the concept of switching over. That's something we would decide.
No, I think it would be through the chair. I think it'd be a yes or no vote to buy the equipment through the voters.
So will we bring capital improvement into that? Would Jeff make a presentation of capital improvement also on our behalf?
Yes,
Okay, because it's over that threshold, right?
it's definitely over the threshold.
Okay, thank you.
And Jeff, I'm assuming you did some research and compared different systems, and this is the one that fits us best?
Correct. Yeah, I did do some cost and performance comparisons, and it seems like this, longevity wise and application wise, it seems like this would best suit the town.
Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Very much. Do you need a vote on this, Mr. Ruda, or do we just proceed to the next item on the agenda?
No, I think we wanted to, before we went any further with it, make sure we got some feedback from the board before we brought it to capital improvement, and make sure the highway commissioners are on board with pursuing this further.
So are you looking for a vote to codify our support, or is it just something you guys will bring forward and say, selectmen in favor?
If you'd like to vote on it and then solidify it, that would be, I think that would work well. If not, I think nobody has said don't go forward with it, so if you'd like to vote on it, that'd be fine.
I think it might be a good idea as a show of support from the board, being the highway commissioners, just to bring that forward to.
Well, eventually, if it goes through capital improvement and it's recommended and the source of funding is recommended, you have to vote on the capital improvement plan anyway. So it's vote now or vote after capital improvement, the way I look at it. But you'll eventually have the opportunity to vote on it.
Marcy, did you have something?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we support this project in concept and move it along to the next step, capital improvement, of which I am now a member.
Hurt your shoulder, pat yourself on the back, or?
No, I'll be able to kind of work with them on that board as well.
I'm just kidding, John.
I know.
It was hidden by his background, Mr. Sullivan. You
Yeah,
couldn't see
I'll
it.
second that. I'll second that as a former, I don't know if I was a founding member of the capital improvement committee, but I was on the first group that got in there, so get a little plug in there too.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Tom Marcy, aye.
Even so, and I.
Jay Johnson, nay.
Harry Siganovich, aye. Thank you, everyone. Mr. Ruda, can we open the warrant now, or would you like to go to your report?
Let's open the warrant now, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and I believe we need a motion to do that, to open the warrant at 3/22/2021 at 7:48 PM, and we're going to close the warrant on April 9th, 2021 at 1 PM.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Tom Marcy, aye.
Even Sullivan, I.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Harry Siganovich, aye. Unanimous. Do we need to discuss anything with that, or do we just go to your report, Mr. Ruda?
You can go to my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. You're up, sir.
Okay, let me share my screen. Jeff, you have to give me the ability to host back.
Leave.
Yeah, don't leave. If you go to the dots next to my picture, just click on that and say make host.
Sorry, I hit stop sharing, and it doesn't seem to have.
That's just to share the screen. You
So
need
go
to
to
go
my-
to the. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Ruda.
go to my picture and go to the upper right-hand corner where it says, where you see the three dots, click on the three dots. And it should be something there that says make host.
Not seeing that. Sorry about that. I not finding,
Okay,
yeah, okay, here, make host. Sorry about that. It was not allowing me to do it, but
all right, I think we're good now. So I took, Mr. Chairman, I took the initial look at next year's FY22 budget. And I thought I'd go over my first pass with the Board of Selectmen and see how we're doing so far. So if you look at our revenues, which are posted online at dudleyma.gov, if you go right here to percent left, that's for this current fiscal year. The line items are listed for the percent left to be collected in that account. So line items listed at 39% or less show, for the most part, with 4 months left in the fiscal year, that we're on track in terms of collecting what was projected. Items listed in the same column in brackets, such as this one, show that we've collected more than what we projected in terms of revenue. There are certain items that will probably fall short. And one of the items that I jotted down here to give as an example was actually building fees. But I have to say, as late as this afternoon, I'm starting to change my opinion on that a little bit, because they're starting to line up in a big way to build for building permits. So with 4 months left in the year, 53% collected as of March 18th, it may not be too far out of the realm of possibility that we get close to the projected amount. I spoke with Rich this morning, and it appears that the tax collections are pretty much on track, which we can see from up here. 35% left for personal property taxes, 32 for real estate taxes, 4 months left in the year. That seems like it's on track. And overall, our revenues collections are right around 38, which is just a tad high. But if you look at things like, let's see where the lottery is here. Lottery. That's our local aid number. That's money in the bank as far as I'm concerned. It's $810,000 left to be collected. You know, over three quarters of a million. That brings us closer to the 34% mark. So long story short, I think our revenues are very much on track. They may be a little lower than projected, but not completely out of whack. So that's, to me, that's encouraging.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ruda,
Yes, go ahead, Rich.
thank you. Mr. Ruda is correct. there's a whole lot of things on here that are lining right up. There's a few items which are end of the year items, interest on real estate, penalties, things like that. The excise bills were just due less than a week ago. So we still have that cycle of interest and the additional penalties that are going on there. Year to date, we were within 1% of where we were last year, for what that's worth, for real estate and for excise, as far as percentage collected against committed. You aren't going to get the dollars in for investment income. There's no rate out there. Just something that's not going to happen. I also want to say, as much as this is 318, it doesn't include your February receipts in there. Also, the end of March is going to give you your third meals tax. That was one thing that jumped out of the page on us. Of course, I hustled to find it and can't immediately put my finger on it, but we're ahead of projections. We projected less in revenue for this year than we did the previous year, given everything, but I think we're above percentage-wise as far as what's coming in, considering it's a quarterly payment. Probably have a clearer picture when March closes out, if that helps.
Excellent. Anything else, Mr. Carmignani?
As far as revenues go, no. I'm sure the town administrator would talk about the meeting this morning with the school, or at least allude to it. We sort of have a loose plan together as far as next year's anticipated revenues, considering you're stringing together a few unique years. So to go through, you'd want to have 19, 20, and 21 if you want to look at 22, so that you're not, so that all of your vacillations can be addressed. You don't want a single 3-year average, because it'll be wrong given the unique nature of the 3 years.
Right,
Also,
well,
you'd have to expect a spike. If COVID restrictions are being eased, you'd have to think that more people are going out to eat, or more people are going to continue the home improvement projects that were started during the pandemic. Who knows?
so that was a great lead in for me. Maybe we should review what we did over the last year real quickly. In 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, we recommended an FY21 general fund budget of $9,178,442. And that amount was a reduction of $205,505 from FY20. As it became apparent that the amount of reduction may not have been enough, if you recall, we were kind of sweating out whether there was going to be a level funded local aid amount, whether it was going to be 20% reduction. The information wasn't coming to us or any other municipality, and we were wondering if it was going to be sufficient to get us through FY21. I recommended a series of furloughs and spending cuts that reduced the FY21 general fund budget by a total of $456,195, below FY20 levels, and that final number was $8,722,000. The Board of Selectmen approved the reductions, and the FAA recommended the cuts at the 2020 spring meeting. In the town meeting, voters adopted it. In July, 4 furloughs became permanent layoffs, and the town reduced its staff by 3 full-timers and 1 part-timer. In October, the funding numbers in the course of the pandemic, had been taking became a little bit clearer to us, And we started coming up with the new service models, the new normal, going forward. We had the Board of Health Assistants, the 2 months of walk-in voting, the vote by mail, the drive-through kiosk, and all the specialized town meetings, the voting clickers, the whole 9 yards. So as we got towards October, there was the funding numbers became clearer to us. We knew what we were working with local aid. And of course, we needed to bring back critical staff. So I recommended appropriating the savings gained through furloughs, layoffs, and cuts in the following ways, and I jotted them down here. By increasing the FY21 general fund budget to $9,338,585, and that amount represented a budget of $45,000 less than the final FY20 general fund budget. We deposited $170,000 into the town stabilization funds. And then, part of this was to properly fund all departmental budgets to protect against the risk of slow or changing federal reimbursement allowances in response to the pandemic. And as we all know, the slow and ever-changing reimbursement amounts have come to fruition. So that was a good move. And then we used the remaining amount to meet all the town's contractual obligations and to remain adequately staffed and funded through the end of FY21. And that included public safety, health. We brought back furloughed highway staff through what turned out to be a fairly active winter. And in October, of course, this was approved at the town meeting. So that brings us to today. If we look at my first pass at the FY22 budget, which is on the screen, we got all the department heads put in their budget requests. I began my initial review and funded everything that we were contractually obligated to fund, and the majority of which were collective bargaining agreements, ongoing contractual obligations, grant obligations, that sort of thing. I left public safety at existing levels. There's one new funding obligation in the fire department that the fire chief can speak to directly. I left efficiencies and cost savings gained through other funding sources. For example, online permitting. Let's see if we can find that. Online permitting, let's see what we got here. We got initially paid, the CARES Act paid initially for the online permitting setup, and it replaces an otherwise full-time required staff position. And that's a $35,000 cost savings in the first year, and will be, with this required ongoing amount will be required every year, but every year that goes by that we're doing it online and don't replace it with a staff member, we save more and more money. So my recommendation is to absolutely leave that in place. I held off on any funding on non-contractual pay increases. In July, it will have been only 9 months, this July, only 9 months since increases were awarded to non-contracted employees. And then those increases were awarded retroactively to those that had been out on furlough. So in July, it will not have been 1 year since the last raise. So I held off on funding those until we have a better idea as to where we are in October. Although there is a partial mechanism in place to go forward with that. I left funding in place for legal compliance, with the electronic records keeping, network backup, cybersecurity, et cetera. I funded the schools at 2.5% increase over last year. And there was a pretty strong message that the board gave me last time to fund at 2.5%. So I figured my initial shot at the budget at 2.5% for the schools. So after I completed the review, the budget worksheet reflects a full year's budget. Let's go down to the bottom. Reflects a full year's budget that will leave all services in place and funded through FY22 with less than a minor tweak in October, meaning maybe when I say a minor tweak, that's like less than $50,000. So my first shot at this was to fund all departments right through June 30th of the following year with only a minor tweak. So here's the problem with that. It comes up to 4.4% increase over past years. It doesn't, we're nowhere near 2.5%. So some things that we should consider moving forward. There's big promises of boatloads of money coming through with the recent 1.9 trillion federal COVID relief bill, but we can't base our budgeting decisions on any of that. We don't know what our free cash number is going to look like. I'm using the governor's local aid number, which is only slightly increased over last year, so we don't know what that final number is going to be. And as the board recalls, not too long ago, there was a hearing to set the tax rate, and the tax rate has gone down substantially in FY22. So at first blush, we're up 4.4% instead of 2.5, but I think that reflects the reality of the roller coaster ride, as Rich alluded to, that we've been on over the past 2 or 3 years. So I wish I had a better picture of where we're going to be in FY22, but I don't have sufficient information right now to ask the board to go any further with it, except to just understand where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Mr. Ruda. Does anyone have any questions of the town administrator?
Not yet.
You have anything else, Mr. Ruda?
That's my first pass at it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
Thanks, Jonathan.
thank you very much. It says here under your report, additional TA updates. Do you have anything else, sir?
I have one update right off the top of my head, and that happens to be that we are going to resume a 3-day-a-week open to the public schedule beginning on March 29th. And that will also include in-person meetings. Happy news?
It's
No
great
one getting
news.
cut off of Zoom calls for a little bit. That's all, that of course is all contingent upon no changes in the numbers and the continued positive trend. And when I say positive, I mean optimistic trend in the way the vaccination numbers have increased and more people are becoming eligible, and some of the state directives and orders have been relaxed. So we're going to continue to do the right thing. We're going to wear the masks. We're going to socially distance. We're going to limit the public's exposure to the building for their protection and for the staff's protection. But we're making progress, and I think that's positive.
Any questions for the town administrator? Hearing none, we will move on to departmental communication. Police chief, do you have anything, sir?
Mr. Chairman, nothing special. The only thing I can say is that the drug take back is on the 24th of April. Again, some questions about that, so just want to make sure I put that out there. And a reminder to people that we do have a kiosk in our lobby, so they don't have to wait till that day if they have to drop them off. They can bring them in, drop them off in our lobby. That's about all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Saw the article in the TNG. You had quite a drug take back this past weekend. Next up, Mr. Fire Chief, do you have anything, sir?
Yeah, I got a few things. So we had the first shot clinic a couple weeks ago. It went really well. Selectman Johnson was there. The Board of Health people did a great job. The paramedics did a great job, and we really worked well together. We gave out 109 doses. I believe it was 44 at Joshua Place and the remainder at Town Hall. Came out to 109 total. Worked really well, so we'll be working on getting them their second shots in a few weeks. I just wanted to mention something about permits for burning. People need to be careful. We've gotten a lot of calls for permit fires that have gotten out of control. People need to make sure that they have a sustained water source by their permit fires, that they wet down the area at the end of the day when they're done burning. We've been to a lot of fires that kind of have been getting out of control 4 or 5 times in a week, and it's really dry out. People just kind of need to be careful. And the last thing I have is, I'm not going to go into details, but I've written 4 grants that I've submitted for to various government agencies over the last week and a half, totaling $602,000. So I'll be waiting to hear on those. Hopefully it will at least get some of those grants, because that would be really good. And unless anybody has any questions, that's all I have.
That's great, Chief. Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I just got a quick one for the chief. Chief, was there a incident Dudley Oxford Road that maybe burned over from last night to this morning? Because I had called, somebody reached back to me, said there was like a smoke in the road. You could see like a burning embers by that tree farm before, what's that, Piasta Road on the left there? Was there something there this morning?
I don't know, but I really don't think it's appropriate to discuss calls when we're live on YouTube. I think we should probably talk about that offline.
All right, well, would have went over the scanner, so.
Well, I'm just not sure of the rules on that.
Okay.
And I'm not sure of the call off the top of my head, so I'd have to look it up anyway.
Okay.
Chief, Mr. Petrinos, do you have anything, sir? And you're on mute, my good man.
Okay, how's that?
Excellent, thank you.
Just wanted some updates what's going on. First of all, the water department did receive a grant for $178,000 for PFAS mitigation and control, and that goes towards treatment. We're going to be, on the sewer end of things, we're going to be starting our I&I construction project as far as pipe relining throughout the town in designated areas where we had infiltration of water. That's going to be starting very shortly, probably next month. The Back to Water, the Mason Road project, is going to be starting in the beginning of May timeframe. That's going to be from the fire station all the way to June Street, and then again from Dudley Oxford Road to Mason Road Extension out to GNS Drive. We're going to loop that all in with a nice 8-inch ductile iron main. That's on that side. Then we're going to have the blending operation start at station number 3 with a new well in place. Unfortunately, that was delayed because of some electrical components that had to be custom made for our antiquated electrical system that we have there. And we should have that ready to go in about a week or 2. DEP's been notified of all our steps. They're pretty happy that we're moving forward with all that. That is going to mitigate the water down below state levels. It's a temporary fix, like I stated before. The board and myself have agreed that we're going to go ahead and move forward with a temporary PFAS treatment vessel, GAC vessel, going to be on the site of station number 3 on Schofield Ave. It's going to be, time frame for that will be probably in the October range, November, and that is going to eliminate all of that, any type of PFAS and maybe other contaminants with it, and allow us to run that station at full capacity. Be advised that the 2 stations in blending will be running consecutively, and that's going to reduce our gallons per day considerably. So I am worried a little bit about the summer months and the hot months, but we'll work our way to try to get through it. In the meantime, with that new vessel, we're going to be able to completely eliminate that scare and use that vessel as a lease to own, where we're going to own the vessel, lease it and own it, and it's going to be incorporated in the new treatment center down at station number 6 in about 2 years' time. The other thing coming into play is going to be Station 1. We're working on that now. That's going to be rehabbed for the building. The wells are already in place. That time frame is pushed off a little because we're monitoring PFAS over there. We have setups already for treatment or for a transition water main to go from Station 1 to Station number 6, where eventually everything's going to be treated there. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on that. That's a little ways down. So we're trying to meet all the state guidelines, which we're way ahead of the game. Unfortunately, the state does require notices going out if you're not fully in complete treatment. We will be getting there shortly. It's a long process, takes time. We've got a lot of borrowing going out there. We've got a lot of SRF funding and our own borrowing. I want to especially thank the town treasurer for all his hard work in getting us through all this complex money matters. It's just unbelievable how difficult it is to go from extremes in your borrowing to get to various phases of your operation. Some monies are used for engineering, some can't be used with loans. They have to be specifically for construction. It's very confusing. So we're making progress. We're making strides. That's my report.
Thank you, George. Mr. Carignani, do you have anything, sir?
I do. Thank you, George. You make my life hell. I'll feed on what George is talking about. All the SRF things are going right now. We're going to have our same end of the year borrowings. It's going to be a little bit different because some non-SRF water projects are getting rolled into a 10-year note. I'm sure the board is going to need to sign the short term, going to need to sign the long term. There is going to be a call from Standard & Poor's sometime in the near future. That's another thing. All of these borrowings tie in to your CIP sheet. So for tomorrow night, we sort of have a stopgap sheet together. I invite everybody to attend the CIP meeting, where we are now, where we're going in the future. It's a very good tool. It's been a little bit of flux because there are some unanticipated borrowings. Onto health insurance. The Hampshire Council of Governments Insurance Trust is having their insurance advisory committee meeting on April the 14th. I believe they're going to open enrollment. Tying to that, the town of Dudley's look back period for enrollment for eligibility is March 1st through the end of February. So I've run those. Those letters are going to go out to people who would newly be eligible for health insurance. There is going to be an update to the health insurance policy manual. Remember, I submit that to the Board of Selectmen for their review and approval. Let's see, CIP's tomorrow night. For everybody who's paid an excise bill and a water and sewer bill, thank you. It's been an arduous task. This is by far the busiest 2-week period. To all the Board of Health assistants, to Tatum and to Donna, thank you for everybody who's left a message and gotten one back. I appreciate your patience. We're continuing to collect those. So I appreciate everybody's efforts towards that. I mentioned their names. I do need to make mention that Tatum Caraccio has moved up as the assistant treasurer collector. So thank you very much. I've been here for about 1.5 years. I have a great deal of faith. Also, we have a new clerk, Donna Hadley Wires, just finishing her 2nd week. I think I made a lot of money on those bets. Everybody figured she was going to be done after the first day. She stayed for 2 weeks and she left today smiling. So thank you. Thank you for the time tonight. Look forward to working with you for the budget coming up in the next cycle. Thank you.
Apologize, Mr. Marcy, yes.
Yeah, Rich, hey, question for you. You mentioned the borrowing earlier. It jogged my memory. Somebody asked me at the store the other day about debt that's going to be coming off the books. This is the time of year where we usually talk about that, like when we can do that and what's our
Oh, yeah.
strategy. Is that gonna be part of our next meeting?
I've gone through 2 iterations with the town administrator, sort of. All right, let's start at a common point. You go through and you raise taxes off of 2.5. Above and beyond 2.5 and new growth is the DE1. It's the items that are debt excluded. So when you have level principal on debt, it means your interest is decreasing. So for this building, you have a $290,000 principal payment every year. The interest that you pay every year is decreasing because the outstanding principal is declining. So when the DE1 goes down a little bit, you have an opportunity to go through, get a debt exclusion vote out there, and to keep that amount debt excluded level, or to increase it slightly. I don't want to speak for Moody's or Standard & Poor's, but the whole idea is the debt excluded amount should remain constant or should slightly increase given your decreased ability to purchase things with the same dollar. The example, you did a renovation in 2002 on this building. What you did with that dollar amount can't be replicated today. You need to adjust for inflation. So that's one of the key factors in there. So at the end of the day, if you were to go back to 2000, 2002, 2005, pick a date, move forward with a 2 or 3% increase, you'd be able to keep taxes similar, notwithstanding another debt exclusion or override. So you'd be keeping that tax rate per thousand for the average home very similar. Yes, the plan is to go through and to put something in place so that we can continue to buy with a similar tax rate. To the flip side, you don't want to have the tax rate jump or lower unexpectedly. You'd like the continual increase. So you want to be replacing that debt. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Well, people are always wondering, what's coming up for this year. People are pretty.
And quick talking points. 2023, it looks like a great deal is going to come off. And right now is the time you should be planning what goes on there. The Board of Selectmen can put forward a debt exclusion vote, but it ultimately needs to be passed. So, and that's something you can't do overnight. A little bit of education is going to go a long way for that. And who knows what the next 6 months is going to be. But definitely the best plan is to keep that debt excluded amount level or slightly increasing. That's
Okay.
the
Yeah,
best thing.
I'll get back to the resident if they didn't watch, but yeah, it'd be good if we can go through that publicly. You're the expert on that. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Mr. Murray. Do you have anything else, sir? Maybe a summertime theme this time? What do you have?
No, just we're out doing street sweeping and basin cleaning, and over the next day or two, we'll with the nice weather, we'll be restriping the parking lot at the town hall, the police department, coordinating with town administrator and the police chief on that. That's about it.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next up, we have board members' comments. Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to echo from the beginning of the meeting, and unfortunate about the Little League parade. I remember my children played. It was always a fun day. And generally they did it on a Saturday, and I wasn't able to attend as a selectman because I work. But it's always a big day, good day to see the kids marching down the street. A lot of fun, a lot of laughs. Big day over at opening day too. They make a lot of money in their concessions, which helps pays a lot of their bills. So if people looking for a worthwhile donation of $10 or $20, I'm sure the Dudley Little League would gladly take it. I want to thank the fire chief, board of health, town administrator, paramedics, our nurses, everybody who participated in the clinic. Heard nothing but positive things. We've been waiting for this. A lot of people don't know we had the equipment already on order. We were holding it, waiting for vaccines. We got denied by the state a few times. And I don't have the most recent numbers. Maybe the administrator or fire chief could bring it up, but I know we're clearing people off our own list. I actually got the call from the Dudley Board of Health. I think it was March 2nd or 3rd, and I'd already gotten the first shot and have gotten the second shot. So we're getting there, people, and just keep the mask, keep the social distancing. Yes, things are loosened up a little bit, and that's great. The weather's nice, but we're getting the ball to the finish line. And to paraphrase and quote Dr. Fauci, you don't spike the ball on the 5-yard line. So let's finish it, and start back to whatever the new normal is going to be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Johnson?
Well, Dudley Little League is something that a lot of us are participated in. I know Mr. Nazi spent a lot of time down the field as I have in the past decade. Sorry to hear that their event is postponed. And it's probably prudent to at least have those conversations. So I'm glad they were able to come to an agreement that made sense for them and the town. And we'll be looking forward to seeing it. And I know, the worm burners I've seen thrown on opening day are, not the best. The kids are better than most of us. The clinic, thanks to everyone that ran that. That saw a lot of happy people that were glad to get their shot and not have to go too far from home for it. So that was a huge benefit for the town. And just to go back to the brine, I'm not against improving safety in the town. I just need to see that clarified a little bit differently to those benefits if it's not strictly financial. So I think the people in the town meeting will eventually get their cut at it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Marcy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll echo the other two guys, the Dudley Little League. I never miss a parade. I always loved that opening day, marching there, especially the little kids that get involved. There was like a dark period where there wasn't a lot of people, and current leadership has kind of brought it back. The last several years, a lot of volunteers with that. So I'm really hoping Dudley Little League can be a force again in the areas. So also want to thank. I was very proud of our town to hold a vaccine clinic. I know that a lot went into that. I know we don't know upfront when it can be. Sometimes it comes in at the last minute. And thanks to all who made that a success. And hopefully we can do another one of those if the state will provide those vaccines. So thank you, everybody, for that.
Thank you, Mr. Marcy. As long as it's on the website, I'm going to take my time during board members' comments to bring it up. If you're a Dudley resident, there's the red banner at the top of the website. That's how you sign up to get a call to get a vaccine. If you haven't done it yet, if you've put it off, I get it. Life gets in the way. Maybe you don't think your time's up yet, so you don't have to sign up. Just sign up. Do it. If you want a vaccine, it doesn't take very long. As Mr. Sullivan stated, it's an easy process. You get an email, you follow the email, you book your appointment, and away you go. So hopefully there'll come a time when I won't be saying this, that we've got everyone taken care of and we're past this. But until then, it's there if you'd like it, and I'd like it if you'd like it. And as far as the Dudley Little League, it's sad, but it's something that has to happen for us all to go forward, I guess. They made a decision not to have it. That's okay. I've got many fond memories, and some people on this call are part of those memories when we were young and played Little League. Good stuff. Hopefully it comes back again soon. That's all I've got. Student representative, we do not have him today. Is that right, Mr. Ruda? I'm not missing him, am I?
I think he goes to this, Mr. Chairman.
That's okay. That's what kids
I think
do.
I thought I saw him earlier on here, but I don't know. We may have lost him at the last technical error. He'll have more to talk about next time.
And coming up next, would someone be so kind as to bring us into executive session and adjournment?
Up the agenda, Mr. Chairman.
I'm
Chair,
sorry?
Make a motion, we convene into executive session on MGL Chapter 38, Section 21, subsection A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation, if any open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares, not to reconvene in open session, and conclusion of executive will be the conclusion of our meeting.
Second,
Okay, you'll second it. Okay. Motion and a second, roll call vote.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
John Marcy, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Harry Siganovich, aye. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.